Hello and welcome. I don't know about you, but I've learned a lot at this conference already. And one of the most personally enlightening sessions to me was Guy Kawasaki's Heidi Award ceremony. I learned that Guy is really short for Guido. I hadn't known that before. And I also learned that supporting and evangelizing Macintosh is worth 25% of the price of a ticket to heaven. And I'm thinking that's pretty good news for people in this room. So it is my great pleasure to welcome today the Apple Fellow and the Chief Evangelism Officer, Guy Kawasaki.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm so used to being introduced as an Apple Fellow, but now I am the Apple Fellow program, if you will. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to you. The title of this speech is called Rules for Revolutionaries, and this is a speech that I hope to impart some wisdom and some advice and some of the things that I learned, mostly the hard way, to you so that you can be revolutionaries and revolutionize the software business. That's what this session is all about. So I'm not going to be pitching you. I'm going to be trying to give you advice, okay? You know, I speak a lot, and usually the audiences are mixed, Macintosh and Windows, so it's a rare privilege for me to speak to a pure Macintosh audience like this. And so I'm going to take a lot of advantage of that, i.e. I'm going to slam the competition. I'm sure there's people from the San Jose Mercury here, but, well, see? So I'll even slam them. If you think about it quite rationally, how much worse could our coverage be? So what the hell? So let's slam Windows first. Windows users, this is a true Windows story. I've even confirmed it. That someone who bought a Windows machine called Novell Tech Support for support, finding out the length of his warranty on his Windows machine, got on the phone with Novell Tech Support, asked how long the warranty is. Tech support person says, well, why are you asking? Tech support person is like curious, you know, what could be going on? And the Windows owner says, well, my cup holder broke. And the Novell Tech support person says, well, what are you talking about? There's no cup holder on a Windows machine. And the Windows user said, of course there is. You press the little button, the tray comes out, and I've been putting my cup of coffee in there. So now you know what kind of people use Windows machines, okay? A little bit of my background for those of you who might be curious why I'm speaking. I've worked for Apple twice in my life. Sign of great intelligence or masochism. The first time I worked from 1983 to 1987. I was actually Apple's second software evangelist. My job was to convince people to do software for a computer that had 128K of RAM, no slots, no color, no documentation, no native compiler. Other than that, it was perfect. And this was in the Mac division. The Mac division was a really great place. We worked for Steve Jobs, and you know, he was the co-founder of Apple, so when you work for the co-founders division, the rules are different, of course, right? So we were probably the greatest collection of egomaniacs in the history of Silicon Valley. And that's saying quite a lot, frankly. So in this Mac division, unlike any other part of Apple, we could fly first class for any flight that lasted more than 2 hours. I interpreted the 2 hours to begin from the moment I left my apartment. That's the Macintosh way, you know. So I flew first class everywhere. We had unlimited supplies of fresh orange juice from Odwalla at $2 a bottle. And on Thursdays and Fridays, we had massage therapists come into the Macintosh division building, and we got back rubs while we sat at our desks. This is obviously long before sexual harassment in the marketplace became an issue. You know, we were very arrogant. Back then, the company was divided into product divisions. So there was the Apple II product division, which basically made all the money. And there was the Macintosh product division, which basically spent all the money. So the joke inside of Apple was, how many Macintosh division employees does it take to screw in a light bulb? And the answer is 1. The Macintosh division employee held up the light bulb and expected the universe to revolve around him. The Microsoft version of this joke, of course, is how many Microsoft employees does it take to screw in a light bulb? The answer to that is none, because Bill Gates declares darkness the new standard. Or perhaps he has simply bought the sun. So a lot has been said about what the people in the Mac division were trying to do. Basically, the spiel that was cleared by Apple PR and Regis McKenna, our PR firm, was that we were trying to improve people's creativity and productivity by bringing to market a great new personal computer. And I think we succeeded in doing that. That was a public statement, what we told, the outside world the Mac division was trying to do. But just between you and I, since I know I won't leave this room, I will tell you that back then, Apple was competing with IBM. And basically, the Macintosh division was trying to send IBM back to the typewriter business holding its electric balls. Okay? So now you know what we were truly trying to do. I'm going to use the top 10 format today to explain the top 10 rules for revolutionaries, what you really need to do as a revolutionary. I use the top 10 format because I've watched so many Apple CEOs give speeches, and they're usually very long and boring. So I figured out if I use the top 10 format, at least if you don't like my speech, you can chart my progress. So when I'm on number 6, you have to gut it out through 4 more, okay? That's the spiel. So the first thing you need to do, if you want to be a revolutionary, I have found out, is you need to change the rules of the game. By definition, if you want to be a revolutionary and you want to make great changes, you have to destroy the existing rules. The existing rules of personal computers in 1984 was, basically, if you were an educator or a consumer or a hobbyist, you used an Apple II. If you were a rich and powerful business person, you used MS-DOS. We tried to destroy those rules. Federal Express destroyed the rules of shipping. They destroyed the rules of pricing. Southwest Airlines destroyed the rules of how airlines fly around the country, hub and spoke versus point to point. Those kinds of companies destroyed the rules. A very good example, the theme park business. Okay, the rules of the theme park business is that you make a really sweet, nice, comfortable, safe ride. It's a small, small world. The best thing that could happen is you twist slightly faster. And that was the rules of the game. That was the rules as Disney established them. Nice rides. You have to be politically correct. I don't know if you remember, but a few months ago there was a whole controversy about how the pirates were perceived as chasing women and for sexual reasons. So now they gave those women baskets of fruit because theoretically the pirates are now chasing the baskets of fruit, not the women at the Disney park. Now, the company that changed the rules of the theme park business was Universal Studios, because they made rides that weren't safe. Right? They made rides that weren't gentle, that weren't kind, that you sort of felt like, boy, that shark is really close to the boat, that you get wet, that you might get burned by the flames. They completely changed the rules of theme parks. And that's what you have to do. You have to change those rules of theme parks. I want you to change the rules of the software business. The software business, the rules are typically, you write a piece of software, right? And then you go down to Ingram or Micro D or someplace and you beg them to carry it for you. And you give them 55 points. And then they maybe stick it in some stores, and then maybe there's sell-through. I mean, that's the traditional rules of the game, and you have to pay to be in catalogs and pay to be marketed and all that stuff. You need to change those kind of rules. You need to sell directly on the net. You need to go direct. You need to put demo versions out. You need to change the rules of the game if you want to revolutionize the business. Otherwise, everything plays into the hand of Microsoft. You need to change the rules of the game. That's the first thing. The second thing is this. And I borrowed this from Bobby McFerrin. The second rule is, don't worry, be crappy. Don't worry, be crappy can best be exemplified by Macintosh. Because in 1984, as I said, when we shipped Macintosh, 128, looking back, I don't know what got in our brains. 128K of RAM, right? Literally, no slots. Our idea of a slot was a serial port. No color, no documentation, no nothing, no install base. But you know what? The key here is that when you get your product to a state where it's good enough, where it enhances people's productivity or creativity, where it makes economic sense for them to buy it because it improves their life, their productivity, their work that much, ship it. Ship it, then test it. That's the Macintosh way, okay? Now, the key here is, so how do you develop a product if you're in this, don't worry, be crappy philosophy? Well, here are some tips. First of all, go with your gut. There is no market research, no panel, no statistical survey, no focus group, no nothing that can tell you how to create a revolutionary product. When we asked people in 1983 what we should do as Apple Computer to build a new computer, they said, build us a bigger, faster, cheaper Apple II. Or build us a bigger, faster, cheaper MS-DOS machine. Not one person said, give us a cute little graphics toy with a trash can in the right corner with no software. Okay? And that's what we created. We were going with our gut. Steve Jobs' gut said, build this kind of computer. Go with your gut. A second tip is this. Design the product that you yourself would want to use. Not some hypothetical person from IDC, not some hypothetical analyst who's supposedly an expert in software. Build the product that you yourself would want to use. The Apple I and the Apple II are very elegant designs. They use very few chips. It's because Woz was poor. Okay? So since Woz was poor, he could not make a sloppy motherboard design. Since he was poor and he wanted to use the personal computer he was creating because he was sick of MIS and the mainframe and centralized computing, that's why the Apple I and the Apple II are what they are. He was designing for himself. So don't design your software or your hardware products for a theoretical yuppie who drives a Volvo with 2.2 kids with 6.5 years of education. Make the product that you yourself would want to use. Third tip. Your task is to transform needs, generic needs to express things, to create art, to get things onto paper, into a very specific want for your particular product. That's the process. Translating needs into a specific want. The next item. George Orwell said, ignorance is bliss. I will make the case that ignoring is bliss. Ignoring is bliss because when you create a new product, you're going to have to ignore a lot of bozos. These are people who are going to try to tell you how stupid it is, how things have always been done a certain way and they cannot be changed. You need to ignore them. You need to ignore your management. Sometimes you need to ignore, or most times you need to ignore the marketing people. Okay? You certainly need to ignore the press and the analysts. Ignoring is bliss. And that's the key. Don't worry. Be crappy. The next thing is borrowed or stolen from the Black Panthers. Step number 3 is churn, baby, churn. Churn, baby, churn is having taken this revolutionary shot, not worrying, being crappy. Having taken this shot, then you need to churn this product. This is when you go into evolution. This is where you listen to people when they tell you what was wrong. This is where Apple's not so good. Because I'll tell you from first-hand experience, when we shipped the Mac 128K, we were so damn tired, we did not want to hear about all the things that were wrong with it. It took us a good 2 years to be able to recover, to even think about changing the existing Macintosh. We failed that way. Microsoft, by contrast, is very good at churning. From Windows 1 to Windows 2 to Windows 3 to Windows 95 to Windows 97 to Windows NT. By the year 2005 or so, it will be a Macintosh. They are very good at churning. You have to give them that. So let's talk about churning a little bit. First thing about churning is you have to make an educated guess. Or in Microsoft's case, you copy somebody else's educated guess. And then you need to fail quick. Fail quick means get it out. The difference between Apple and Xerox PARC is that we were willing to ship and fail quick. Really. Xerox PARC, they not only cannot fail quick, they can't even sue you on time. Okay? The next thing you need to do is you need to eat your own dog food. Eating your own dog food means that you have to use your own product. You absolutely must. Sometimes Apple can be accused of not doing this too. But you need to eat your own dog food. One of the best examples I found of eating your own dog food is a company called Life Sciences Corporation. They make the little breath control things so that when you're drunk, if you get in your car, you need to breathe into the tube. It checks your alcohol level. It won't start the car. And then randomly, as you're driving, it asks you to check. And if it detects too much alcohol on your breath, the car won't run. One of the things they do to eat their own dog food is that all their executives have had one of these things attached to their car. Those executives need to see what it's like to use their tool. You know, they're eating their own dog food. They're seeing how it's, you know, what's the ramifications of having this thing connected to your steering column? What's the ramifications of this thing asking you when you're driving to breathe into it? You know, they're eating their own dog food. It's a crucial step in churning. Now, the fourth thing is you need to divide and prosper. Divide and prosper is very counterintuitive because most companies and people think that market share is the key to profitability. Indeed, that market share causes profitability. Market share is correlated with profitability. Usually companies that are profitable have large market shares. However, getting a large market share doesn't cause you to be profitable. You need to divide your markets and prosper. And if you divide the markets and serve enough markets, you will end up where you can roll up to overall large market share. But the goal, and this is the mistake that Apple made, the goal of just lowering your price to get large market share will not work. You will lose money and you will not achieve market share. You need to divide and prosper. All of marketing, I think, boils down to one graph. The graph has a vertical axis and a horizontal axis. On the vertical axis, you should measure your company's unique ability to provide something. So the higher you are on the graph, the more it is that only you can provide this thing. On the horizontal axis, you measure the value of your software, your services, your hardware to the customer. So the farther out on the right you are, the more valuable your product or service is. All of marketing boils down to how do you get high and to the right on this graph? How is it that you and only you can provide this great service, this great product, this great software, this great hardware? You need to be high and to the right on the graph. If you are uniquely providing something of no value to the customer, you are a bozo, okay? And if you're providing something of great value to the customer but not uniquely, you're sheep. You will compete only on price. Where Apple Computer is high and to the right in digital content creation, in internet access, in K-12 education, we print money. Right? Where we're low and to the left, that's where we get our clocks cleaned. You need to be high and to the right. You need to divide and prosper. And I'll tell you, I want to go into this a little bit deeper. A little bit about the history of Macintosh evangelism. And looking back romantically with hindsight, I'll tell you that we basically went through 3 steps. When we first evangelized Macintosh, we were covering the earth. The truth be known, we let anybody join the Apple Certified Developer Program, okay? And there was this limit about how much hardware you could buy at 50% off, and those limits were never enforced. I probably sold more leases and Macintoshes than anybody at that time during Apple. Of course, I was giving 50% off. Now, we were covering the earth because we weren't sure what kind of software was necessary for Macintosh. Okay? There was a part of our company, of our division, who thought we had it all figured out. We needed a spreadsheet from Lotus, a database from Ashton Tate, a word processor from MicroPro. And as you all know, basically we're 0 for 3 there, right? Now, but because we were covering the earth, luckily we were covering the earth, and in a rare moment of Apple humility, let me tell you, it wasn't because we knew we should cover the earth, we just didn't know any better not to cover the earth. So we were covering the earth, and one of these things that popped up was Aldous PageMaker. Aldous PageMaker is an example of letting 1,000 flowers bloom. Aldous PageMaker is a product that with PostScript and a laser printer saved Apple Computer. Without PageMaker, there probably would be no Apple. I'll tell you though, there was nobody at Apple who planned desktop publishing. Not John Scully, not Steve Jobs, not Guy Kawasaki. None of us sat in the Mac division and said, we have a vision. And in that vision, we're going to take away the pots of glue and the rapidograms and the T-squares and the razor blades. We're going to take away all the analog crap, and we're going to give people our digital crap. Okay? That conversation never, ever took place. PageMaker is a gift from God. It saved Apple Computer. If you're atheist or agnostic, you ought to rethink your position on the existence of God. Because quite frankly, Apple's continued survival can only be explained by a benevolent God. Okay? That's letting 1,000 flowers bloom. Now, when that flower bloomed, PageMaker, John Scull, not Scully, John Scull, became the desktop publishing evangelist. He was flowing with the going, if you know what I mean, as opposed to going with the flow. He saw this and took it and ran with it. That's why there was desktop publishing. But it's not because we planned it. Key here is let 1,000 flowers bloom. The fifth step is you need to make evangelists, not sales, when you initially ship a product. It's more important that you get people who believe in your cause. That was what was important in 1984 to Apple Computer. That developers and early adopters and the masochists of the world, that they would believe in Macintosh, not that they would buy Macintosh. You need to turn facts into emotions. Companies that have been very good at turning facts into emotions are Apple Computer with Macintosh, Saturn with their cars, Jell-O, if you would go back in history and look at it, Jell-O turned facts into emotions, about the fact of how easy it is to create a dessert, to the emotion of how easy it would be to look like a good homemaker. Even Jell-O had that. It's very different. Turning facts into emotions is what evangelists do. Turning emotions into facts is what MIS departments do. Making evangelists, you need to find the right people. You know, in 1984, one of the big mistakes we made is we had a typical MBA brain-dead yellow tie analysis that went like this. We have a business and productivity machine, okay? So we want business and productivity companies to use it. So what we'll do is we'll go to Fortune 500 presidents, vice presidents, and MIS directors. Because they have the title, they have the power. They will enforce top-down adaptation and adoption of Macintosh in Fortune 500 companies. That was the theory in 1984, okay? That sold 5 Macintoshes. Okay? The people who really made Macintosh successful were the salt of the earth. They were the designers, the writers, the editors, the students, the temps, the interns, the secretaries, the administrative aides. It was everybody except the people with the titles. You need to find the right people if you want to be a great evangelist. Then you need to give them a way to test drive your cause, a demo version of your software. If you don't have a demo version of your software on a website today, you are basically brain dead. Okay? You need to enable people to test drive your software. You need to be able to say to people, I'm not going to bludgeon you into becoming my customer. Instead, I have great respect for your intelligence, and I will let you test drive my software and conclude for yourself why you should buy it. The next step is you need to provide an easy, safe first step. Another mistake that Apple made in '84. We thought we could get entire companies to convert to Macintosh. It's much too risky for a company. It's much too risky for a company. Entire companies did not convert. However, in easy, safe first steps, little departments within the company did. The newsletter department, you know, the graphics department, the slide presentation department, maybe the wing design department of an aeronautics company, but not the entire department. We could not say to any Fortune 500 company, throw out all your workstations, convert everything to Macintosh. That was a stupid thing that we tried. Give people an easy, safe first step. And now I'll tell you a little story about, and the lesson is don't be proud when you're an evangelist. Because people may use your products for things that you have not foreseen, such as desktop publishing. And the classic example from business is this. When Kleenex was first created, Kleenex was supposed to be a very glamorous thing. Kleenex would be very glamorous because Hollywood stars and starlets would use it to take off their makeup. It was a very, very romantic thing, Kleenex, okay? Come to find out, none of them used Kleenex to take off their makeup. They used it to blow their noses. And that's what made Kleenex successful, as a replacement for a handkerchief, not for something to take off makeup, for very dramatic, romantic, highfalutin people. Kleenex. The sixth thing is you need to avoid the death magnets. Death magnets are things that You know, you look at it and you say, I know I'm not supposed to do this, but it's so attractive, it's so logical, it's so understanding, I have to do this. A death magnet. One death magnet is the kiss of yes. The kiss of yes is when you see so many opportunities as an entrepreneur that you don't know what to pick, and you want to pick them all because you're afraid of niching your company too early, of foregoing a larger market. You know, you want to be an internet company, you want to be a development company, you want to use VARs, consultants, dealers, you want to download through the net, you want to do everything. You want to sell content, you want to sell services, you want to do everything. That's the kiss of yes. That is a death magnet. Second thing is what I call monkey see, what gorilla do. Monkey see, what gorilla do. Like basically the people in this audience are more or less monkeys, okay? Monkeys meaning that, you know, you're two guys in a garage, a guy and a gal in the garage, two gals in the garage, straight and gay, okay? We got all those permutations, right? So now, you're basically monkeys, okay? And you're thinking, you know, you just graduated from Carnegie Mellon or something, and you want to create this great piece of software. You're going to be the next Paul Brainerd or the next John Warnock or something. And you're a monkey. And, you know, you're living on soy sauce and Jolt and Twinkies right now, right? You're a monkey. But then you watch the gorilla. The gorilla is Microsoft. The gorilla, they have, you know, they have an online service. They have an operating system business. They have an application business. They have a news channel. They have 250,000 square foot booths in Comdex. They, you know, they're standing next to Rupert Murdoch in every press conference. They're like, you know, hanging around Mike Ovitz. They're buying ads on the side of 101. They're renting all of Las Vegas. I mean, they're doing that kind of stuff. So you think, I'm a monkey. I want to be like a gorilla, so I'm going to go be like a gorilla too. And then you throw press conferences with $50,000 worth of white wine and shrimp, okay? And you get a booth at Comdex where you're the only Macintosh company. And you do these stupid things because you're trying to emulate a gorilla. You're not a gorilla, you're a monkey. You have to act like a monkey. Okay? You have to do things in a gorilla, G-U-E-R way, not a G-O-R gorilla way. Don't fall for the trap of because a big company is successful and does things this way, you as a small company should do the same thing. That is a death magnet. The seventh thing to do to be a revolutionary. I can tell you this in either of two ways, with profanity or without. Which way do you want it? Found it. What a surprise. So, if any of you don't want it in the profane way, you heard Gil say that we're going to do whatever developers ask, right? Okay. The seventh thing is that you, if you want to be a revolutionary, you need to eat like a bird and you need to shit like an elephant. Now, let me explain that before you write that down. It's very important, actually. A bird, believe it or not, is an enormous consumer. Somebody says to you, you eat like a bird, that's an insult. Okay? A bird, like a hummingbird, eats 50% of its weight per day. A bird eats a lot. An elephant shits 165 pounds a day. So what I'm telling you is if you want to be a revolutionary, you need to eat like a bird. Eat like a bird means that you need to consume information. You need to be, you know, in libraries. You need to be on Knight Ridder information. You need to use answers.com. You need to be surfing the web. You need to be going to conferences. You need to be reading everything. You need to really be sucking up information any way that you can. Eat like a bird, constantly eating. But then you need to shit like an elephant. And the reason why you need to shit like an elephant is because when you get all that information, you shouldn't keep it close to yourself. You should establish open standards. That's one of the mistakes that Apple made, you know. But we tried to keep things too proprietary. But we should have created open standards a long time ago in many, many areas, including perhaps licensing our OS more aggressively 5 years ago. Now, the key here is that you need to get all this information, but then you need to share it. You need to document it. You need to get it out. You need to create open standards so that you bring the whole industry up with you. As they say, a rising tide floats all boats. Okay? So I have a friend who works for a biotech company. The company before this one, it was a very proprietary, sort of paranoid company, you know, that they didn't let anybody come in who was from the outside. They didn't talk to other people. They didn't share their results. They didn't share their techniques. As a consequence, nobody shared their results and techniques with them. Then this guy went to an open biotech company. This biotech company was fairly free with the information, how it developed experimental methods, what it did, what findings did it have as preliminary things. And he found that it was much easier to work for a company that had open standards. People were helping it, and it was helping them. It was better for everybody. Now, I'll tell you some examples in the real world about eating like a bird. You know, the Japanese have a saying that the more important something is, the more you should use amateurs, not professionals. That's sort of counterintuitive. When Japanese consumer companies want to know how Americans buy consumer electronics, they do not use professional market researchers. They do not commission studies. They do not call McKinsey or Bain & Company. They use amateurs. The Japanese executives, who may be professional managers but complete amateur market researchers, they get on an airplane and they go and stand in Fry's and they watch how Americans buy consumer electronics. It is so important for them to see how Americans buy electronics that they cannot leave it to a market research professional. And I advocate this theory too. The more important something is, the more you should use amateurs. Second example, Harley-Davidson is a company that, you know, almost went out of business. One of the reasons why it made a strong recovery is because it institutionalized pressing flesh. Every employee at Harley-Davidson, whether you're secretary, president, vice president, or product manager, you have to go to Harley-Davidson biker rallies every year. It would be as if Gil Amelio said to every Apple employee, you have to go to a user group every year, which would actually be a good thing. Okay. So the interesting thing is now Harley-Davidson has these people who are pressing flesh with its customers. These people would have either never have gotten a market research done by a professional, or they would have never even cared. They would have never had any kind of contact at all. Suppose you are the telephone operator at Harley-Davidson. You would have never read the professional market research study of the Harley-Davidson customer. But because you work for Harley, you're required to go to a biker rally. When you go to the biker rally, you find out that, my goodness, the people who buy Harley-Davidsons today are bankers and lawyers and doctors and dentists. They are not bike gang members making speed on the side. They are not mechanics. So now this operator, when he or she answers the phone, has an entirely new perspective on who's on the other end of the phone. It is not a bike gang member or a mechanic. It is a yuppie. And so he or she is talking to this customer differently because he or she pressed flesh. That's part of eating like a bird. One more example from high technology, since this is a high-tech audience. North Star Lake Tahoe has a frequent skiers program. The frequent skiers program, they keep track of how many vertical feet you ski in a year. Okay? It's like the airline programs. Now, if you think about it, an airline can find out how many miles you fly very easily because, you know, San Francisco to Kennedy is pretty standard, you know. Now, North Star keeps track of vertical feet. And if you think about that, that's not so standard. It depends on how many days you ski. Depends on what time you got to the mountain. It depends on how crowded the mountain was. It depends on which lifts you went up and down on the mountain. Because there's more than one lift, more than one vertical feet measurement. North Star has created a bracelet. In that bracelet is a chip. As you ski at North Star, when you go through the lift line, you hold the bracelet up to the sensor. It records who you are and which lift you're going up. And since it knows which lift you're going up, it knows how many vertical feet you're skiing down. So the interesting thing is they truly know how the customer uses the mountain. Not just to the point where, well, we knew or we know that he or she has been at the mountain today, but they know that the person's at the mountain, what exact lifts the person go up and down. Not just that the person was at the mountain. And I think that is tremendous use of customer knowledge. They do that and they create loyalty programs. They also can figure out a way to make special programs and promotions so that the rest of the mountain is used. The lifts that aren't used very well have special deals for them. It's a very interesting use of information. But that's eating like a bird again. So the seventh recommendation is eat like a bird, shit like an elephant. The eighth thing is don't ever ask customers to do something that you wouldn't. Now, talk about calling the kettle black, okay, as an Apple employee. But it's something that came to me in the software business. I was on the board of directors of a company called Objective Software. And they had a product called Spreadbase, which was a combination spreadsheet and database, high-end. And this is, after I left Apple and I was writing for Mac User and Macworld, so I went on some company boards. And I sat in these meetings with the people from Objective Software, and the VP of Sales would come into the meeting and say, we have 1,100 sites seeded with Spreadbase. And those 1,100 data sites, they are just thrilled to death. They just love the product. And they love the product so much that I'm confident that 1 month before we ship, we will get purchase orders and deposits for the software. So I'm sitting there thinking, boy, I would not pay for software in advance or give you a purchase order. And, you're in the software business, right? Is that like brain dead or what? Can you imagine someone giving you a purchase order or a deposit for software a month before it's supposed to ship? Okay? Basically, we were asking customers to do something we ourselves would never do. Nobody in their right mind would pay for software in advance. But we thought we could do it. And Objective Software is the only case of an investment of mine that I lost money. I lost a lot of money in that company. And partly it was because we were asking people to do something we ourselves would not do. So if you have any policies like that in your company, think about that. If you wouldn't do it, your customer wouldn't want to do it. Another example from the banking business. Believe it or not, in California, Wells Fargo Bank had a marketing program where a computer would call you at home in the evening, and if it detected a human voice, then it would say, this is Wells Fargo Bank, please hold, an operator will be right with you. Now, can you imagine being told by a computer to hold when the computer called you, you didn't call it? That is unfathomable. Now, I'm going to give you a positive example. How many of you have kids in this audience? Oh, a fair amount. Usually, the Macintosh audience that I speak to, they don't have kids. I don't think they have sex, frankly. Obviously, this audience is getting older. But not too old. My wife and I have 2 children. And one of the great oxymorons in our lives today is vacationing with children. Actually, I have 3 oxymorons in my life. Vacationing with children, Apple marketing, and Microsoft innovation. Now, vacationing with children. When you vacation with children, you notice something. Children generate a lot of laundry. And sending laundry through a hotel laundry system is very expensive. Like booties would be $5, blanket would be $10. If you work for a company that just lost $700 million, you can't use this hotel laundry system. You have to wash these charges, okay? So that's the financial aggravation of traveling with children on vacation using hotel laundry systems. Also, my 2 sons each have their own blankie. Okay, that particular blankie. Like their father, they're completely single platform people. Okay. Now, there's no virtual blankie yet. Okay. Now, or soft blankie. To give equal time to all the emulation software, or orange micro blankie. Now. Okay, so they each have these blankies, okay? Now, if they don't have that blankie, they will not take a nap. And if they won't take a nap, why go on vacation, right? So all of this is leading me up to tell you about this great hotel in Hawaii called the Kauai Hyatt Regency. At the Kauai Hyatt Regency, if you ever stay there, go there, and you'll see that there are laundry rooms on all the hotel room floors. It's very interesting. That in itself means that there are less guest rooms than they could have built. Those laundry rooms take up space. It also means that people send out less laundry through the hotel laundry system, sub-optimizing revenue, right? Then if you go into the laundry room, you would see that the washers and the dryers are free. And that to me is amazing, that a place like a Hyatt Regency in a place like Kauai would give you free washers and dryers. That is truly focusing on the customer, not asking the customer to do anything they themselves would not do. And that's why I go all over the world telling people to stay at the Kauai Hyatt Regency. Truly focusing on the customer. Now, since there's a fair amount of people in this audience who have children, and hopefully all of you at some point will, because that is truly the product creation process. Talk about multimedia machines. There is smell, there is color, there is motion, Let me tell you a story that has nothing to do with this speech, as opposed to all the other stories I've been telling you. My wife and I, when we were pregnant with our first child, and just so you know, you have to say we are pregnant, okay? Although we didn't need the epidural. Epidurals is a whole other story. You know, epidurals, that's why I can't use a teleprompter. Epidural, before our first baby, we went to Lamaze. And Lamaze is a very interesting experience. Basically, you go to this Lamaze class, and you're supposed to spill your guts in front of these strangers. And typically, an instructor whose name is Moonbeam goes around the room and asks all the wives, "Why are you here?" And all the wives say, "Well, we want a beautiful birthing experience. We want to learn how to control pain by breathing and, you know, puffing and stuff like that." And we heard that if you use an epidural, inevitably some of the epidural drugs enter the baby's bloodstream, and it means that your baby is sleepier, drowsier, not as alert. Well, come to find out, in software terms, that's a feature, that's not a bug. Now, so that's what all the wives say. Then Moonbeam asks the husbands, "Why are you here?" All the husbands say basically, "Oh, my wife said I had to be." Now, okay, so back to this main story that's not the story. So about 3 months before we are expecting our first son, the nesting hormone kicks in. This nesting hormone is kind of like a type 11. You know, you just don't know what causes it, but it's there. Okay? Now, and there's no such thing as 761 for pregnancy. Okay, so now the nesting hormone kicks in. And one of the consequences of the nesting hormone is that you have to decide what kind of diapers you're going to use. Okay? So if you're like, you know, West Coast, politically correct family, you say, "I'm going to use cotton diapers." And if you're going to use cotton diapers, you have to wash them yourselves in hypoallergenic, biodegradable soap, right? You don't want to leave the world covered with disposable diapers. It takes 75,000 years to decompose, you know? So we use cotton diapers. 3 weeks go by. And you notice some things with cotton diapers. One is, you don't like to wash its diapers with your stuff. Okay? Second thing is, that sets off a whole another environmental crisis, because now you really feel guilty if you do too small a load because of all the water you're wasting. On the other hand, if you wait for a large load, then your house stinks. Okay, so 3 weeks we're using cotton diapers. We said, forget this. Okay? You know, ease of use. That's my middle name, right? So now we go and we use a cotton diaper service. Cotton diaper service. We use cotton diaper service for 3 weeks, and we noticed some problems with the cotton diaper service. First of all, when you have a new baby, you're in a daze for the first, 10 years or so. So you forget to put the dirty diapers out. So again, your house stinks. And inevitably, they forget to deliver something, so you're out of diapers. So basically, I'll tell you, in the first 6 weeks of our first son's life, we went from let's use hypoallergenic biodegradable soap and wash his cotton diapers to let's use the cotton diaper service to let's just buy Pampers and give money to the Sierra Club. Can you tell the Apple speechwriters don't really work with me very well? The ninth thing you need to do as a revolutionary is you need to suck down, not up. Most people think that to introduce a new product or get a new service or something like that, you need to suck up to people with titles. And I'm telling you that's wrong. You need to suck down or suck sidewards, but it isn't up. Because when you suck up to these presidents, vice presidents, MIS directors, typically they just don't get it. You know, the higher the title, the more powerful a person on paper, the less likely that person is to adopt change. Really. I think it's something to do with oxygen. You know, when you get higher and higher in a company, the oxygen gets thinner and thinner, and it's more difficult to support intelligent life. Okay? Now, I see some of you work for Macintosh divisions within Windows companies, huh? Now, the key here is that, you know, the people who really made Macintosh successful were, as I said, the secretaries, the administrative aides, the editors, the writers. They were everybody but the titles. So sucking down and sucking sideways is the way to go. It's the secretary and the administrative aide and the student and the intern. It was people like you who made Macintosh successful, not any Fortune 500 brain-dead president, I assure you. You're the ones who made Macintosh successful. So how do you suck down, or how do you suck sideways? Well, first of all, you have to show up in person. Much as I love email, I know I have to show up in person. You have to ignore people's titles. You know, look for the people without titles. All you care about is that a person gets it and wants to help you. That's the only test for a supporter. Another thing is hang out with the hoi polloi. Hang out with the people who really do the work. There's a story about Walt Disney that he used to hang around with the people who were building Disneyland, not the people who were designing and marketing Disneyland. Walt Disney would get down on his hands and knees as Main Street was being built so that he could have a kid's perspective of Main Street and looking up at the buildings. Okay? Walt Disney was hanging around with the real customers, the kids of Disneyland. Suck down, not up. And the 10th thing is, if you really want to be a revolutionary, this may be the most important, don't let the bozos grind you down. Because bozos are going to try to grind you down. Bozos tried to tell Christopher Columbus it couldn't be done. Bozos tried to tell Walt Disney that Disneyland would never work. Bozos told Walt Disney that Snow White, the movie, would never work. Who would want to see an animated little princess dancing around the film? Okay? Don't let the bozos grind you down. All of being a Macintosh owner and a Macintosh developer is about defying bozos. Right? That's just how it is. It's the pursuit of the death of bozosity that Apple Computer stands for. So, I want to read to you from some quotes of bozosity. Just so that, you know, when you think that you're being ground down, just remember these quotes. This is the first quote. Quote, I think there is a world market for maybe 5 computers. Thomas Watson, chairman of IBM in 1943. Quote, there is no reason anyone would want a computer in their home. Ken Olsen, president, chairman, and founder of DEC, 1977. Quote, this telephone has too many shortcomings to be seriously considered as a means of communications. The device is inherently of no value to us. Western Union internal memo, 1876. Quote, so we went to Atari and said, hey, we got this amazing thing, even built with some of your parts. And what do you think about funding us? Or we'll give it to you. We just want to do it. Pay our salary. We'll come to work for you. And they said, no. So then we went to Hewlett-Packard and they said, hey, we don't need you. You haven't gone through college yet. Apple Computer. Steve Jobs, on his attempts to get Atari and HP interested in his and Woz's personal computer. And the best quote of all, 640K ought to be enough for anybody. Bill Gates, 1981. And now I'm going to leave you this word. This thought is about winning, because you are an audience of winners. You know, I don't care what the public, the press, and the market share studies indicate. You know, sometimes it's just, I personally believe it's better to fail at doing the right thing than succeed at doing the wrong thing, you know. And I don't care what happens, you know, well, we took the shot. We tried to build the best products that we could. We changed the history of personal computers in this room. And there is nothing to be ashamed of. So we are winners. So let me talk to you about winning. In the purest form, winning becomes a means. It is not an end. It is a means to improve yourself and your competition. It is a means to improve the world. Companies and people like you have a moral obligation to play to win and to force everyone to play at the highest level. Winning is also a means to play again. The rewards of winning, the money, the power, the satisfaction, and the self-confidence should never, ever be squirreled away. The unexamined life may not be worth living, but the unlived life is not worth examining. Now I'm going to tell you one last story to explain to you the difference between the Apple world and the Wintel world, about winning and values and why I am still at Apple Computer and why I love Macintosh. This is a true story, first-hand knowledge. My wife and I recently went to a fundraiser. It was a silent auction for the Palo Alto Theater Works. This is a community theater. And at this silent auction, there were various, you know, weekends at Napa and, you know, stuff like that where you bid on. But one thing was a little painting from one of the set designs of one of the plays. And my wife wanted this little painting, this little graphic design for our room, okay? So it's a silent auction, so you write your name and the price. Then the next person comes along and pops it, you know. So I'm watching this, and so she puts in a bid This guy comes in, puts a bid higher. She puts a bid, guy comes back, same guy. My wife the guy, my wife the guy, my wife the guy. Finally, this guy comes up to my wife and he says to her, you know what? I see that you're bidding against me for this painting. I want to tell you something. I am very rich. I will own this painting. Whoa, hey, excuse-moi, okay? So then I find out this guy works for Intel. So at that point, my wife says, you know what? Let's just make a really high bid. Let them beat us and more money for charity. Okay? So that's the Wintel world. That's a slice of the Wintel world. Now let me tell you about the Apple world. Come to find out, when you want to check your utility bill, you can call PG&E, and PG&E can look at your bill, and just by changing the type of rate structure you're on, save you a lot of money. It's just a flip of the switch. Why they don't do that automatically, I don't know. But you call PG&E and you say, hey, would you look at my utility bill, tell me if there's a different billing pattern, save you money. So my wife does that. Call PG&E, gets on the phone with this guy, and this guy starts, I guess they don't have much to do over there, so he's like talking about, oh yeah, we can save you hundreds of dollars and do all this. And then he finds out that I'm in the computer business, so my wife's talking to him, and he says, yeah, sometimes when we're not busy here at PG&E, we go and we look up the PG&E bills of famous people. Okay? So he says, and you know what? Once I looked up the bill of Wozniak, and I figured out a way we could save him several $1,000s a year in utility bills. So because it's Wozniak, we called him up and we said, hey, all we're going to do is flip the switch, and now you'll save several $1,000s. And Wozniak's wife, you know what she said to the PG&E guy? She said, you know what? That's just terrific. Now we can give more money to charity. That's the Apple story. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.